I'm Troy Thompson. Over the last 15 years, our family has worked hard to create a place we call the center of the universe. A place where our kids and someday our grandkids can come home to and laugh, have fun, learn how to work, pray, worship God, and be a place to celebrate life with all our friends. After a quarter century in uniform, I put away one set of boots for another, working on our acreage, improving the land, fixing some structures, and building new ones. We say, give back to the community, be useful, keep your hands calloused, and spread the gospel. This is a little place in a little state right in the middle of flyover country, from which cries out a voice in the wilderness to all who might want to listen, learn, and laugh along with us. This is our American dream. Hello, friends and neighbors, and welcome to Sunnyside. Man, my voice is just not where I would like it to be. And there's a few reasons for that today. This is the final show of the third season, and we're wrapping things up. And I must have been cheering so loud for myself that this is why my voice sounds like that. I think I've got a little bit of a cold or something going on. Wake up in the morning, it's just not where it should be. Singing the church choir yesterday, and you know what? Took a little bit to get there, and I was my register at the top was a little weak, and maybe that's good. Maybe I'm supposed to sound a little bit more like this. I got kind of a rougher voice today. Maybe that's a good sound. But part of it was probably because on Saturday night went to it would be the sub-state game, right? The game that takes the local high school girls once again back to state. Last year was their first ever appearance at the state tournament for basketball, and Saturday night would have got them there, but they lost by just a few points against a great West Marshall team, and so they won't be returning to the state tournament this year. But boy, we sure were cheering loudly for the girls of the local high school team and hoping that they would pull off a victory. They've worked so hard and they've had a great year. 23-2. That's their record this season. And of course, that second loss came on Saturday night. And so lots of cheering involved with that. And then on Saturday, actually, I was doing, we did a little bit of a rehearsal. So here's some news for you. This coming in March here, so coming up very quickly at the end of March, and it'll be March 29th. I will be a part of a 50's revival show. My good friend Donovan Johnson, the pianist and musician extraordinaire, who was, I think, he was the first interview that I did in the first episode of the first season was with Donovan Johnson, my friend from high school, who's toured the world, played Carnegie Hall, and done all these other things, moved back to the area. We've talked about him quite a bit. He's got his own little farm going on and fun operations out there. Donovan's going to be a part of this episode today, not in person, but in discussion about really everything tying together, and because it's a very musical episode. So I wanted to highlight that my voice obviously sounds a little bit different today, and the reason for that is it's really getting a lot of use lately for some reason. And so Don asked me to be a part of his 50's revival show, which is going to be on, again, the 29th of March at the Bowman Fine Arts Center in Forest City, Iowa. Tickets will be available soon, if not already. Check it out on the Bowman Fine Arts Center website, and you'll be able to come and see a great show, a full 2-hour program with lots of great songs, of which some of them I get to sing the lead. Can you believe that? So Don has put this whole set together, and he's put the band together, and what an extraordinary band it is. And so it's going to be just a great performance. If you like music from the 50s, starting out with the doo-wop and all of that type of stuff. I used to sing in a group called Three Men and a Mic, and I sang bass. And I've come to the conclusion, and you might hear it when you listen to some of those songs from the 50s particularly, I think people that had a bass or a baritone voice, I think people in the 50s thought that they were stupid, is my opinion, particularly in the music industry, because we have high-flying tenors, and they sing great and beautiful, the melody is wonderful, and then the bass was always do 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 boom boom, like the dum-dum-dum. And no possible way that if you had come out like Werner von Braun certainly could not have had a baritone or a bass voice, because the public in the 40s and 50s and 60s would not have accepted that our rockets and our missiles and our nuclear programs could have ever been thought up by a guy with the voice that's a little bit deeper than everybody else's. And so, hey, boo-boo. I feel like that's doo-wop. Like this, like the generally musicians or music in the industries felt like people with the deeper voices were dumb. So don't learn any words. Just sing just keep the rhythm and dum 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 dum. And so I did that. Actually, that was actually probably right up my alley, to be honest. Maybe I am dumb now that I think about it. I was in high school. I was not the best musician of the four of that quartet that I was in, by far. Those three other guys were actually really good musicians, and I was just kind of, I had a hard time remembering. I still have a hard time remembering lyrics. So that's a challenge, because I've got to learn lyrics for the lead in 3 songs. And of course, got to learn all these other songs that are part of the show. But I'll be singing this one that it was actually sung by Robert Mitchum, and I don't know if you've heard it or not, but it's called The Ballad of Thunder Road.
Let me tell the story. I can tell it all about the mountain boy who ran illegal alcohol.
So I think that Don thinks that is something that I can do, and I certainly enjoy that song. So I'm like, yeah, I can sing that. There's a lot of words and it comes pretty fast, so I've got some lyrics to remember. But also get a chance to sing a couple of other leads. The Big Bopper, I'll sing Chantilly Lace, which is a great song, obviously very well known, and a little creepy. I felt it was a little creepy. I don't know if it's creepy or not, but it's got a real. The 50s had a kind of a weird teenage older man vibe, in my opinion, and so that's a thing that happened. It also was repeated in country music in the 70s, so maybe it just never went away. And then because I think there were a couple of times that in the church choir we sang some more hip type contemporary songs, and I was willing to do my best to screech a little bit. Don must have felt that I was capable of singing Ray Charles and Hit the Road Jack. What you say? So we'll keep working on that. We've got so those are the 3 things that I'll be that yours truly will be singing in this 50s revival show. It's going to be awesome. Again, on the 29th of March. Lots of other great things, male, female quartets, the live band, just great music. Things like this, the Castle in the Sky from the bop chords back in the day.
I've got a castle in the sky, built for you, dear, just for you and I.
Whispering Bells by the Dell Vikings. Of course, this one, I Only Have Eyes for You, the Flamingos. My True Story, the Jive 5. And so we'll be replicating all of those, and then there's female quartet as well, and solo pieces, everything from Patsy Cline, Danny and the Juniors, Joe Turner, Carl Perkins songs, Buddy Holly with Not Fade Away, and just lots of other great songs and music compositions that you're going to know and recognize. And if you like that kind of music, it's going to be a great show. Recommend coming out. So we've been practicing that, and we had our. It's been good. I have to say, the other 3 in the court. So the other 3 in the male quartet, of which I'm the bass. So dum 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 dum. The other one is Don Johnson. So he's the musical wizard, and So he's one part of it. He sings baritone. And then there's Jason Slater, who in his own right was Slater Nation, and he's a musician and a variety of other things, and a great performer, and just a guitar player, and on and on and on. So he's got all the talent there. And when I was in high school, Jason was he was in theater productions and music and band and football and just everything. That he's a few years older than I am, but he did all that stuff. So he's just a great performer. And then the lead tenor is a classically trained like opera singer, and Kiliano Anderson, who is just amazing. And he's been in shows that we've done locally, and of course he's performed all over the place too, and just an amazing voice and having lots of fun. So those three guys are talking about fifth and seventh and ninths, and I don't even know what they're talking about. I didn't know what the three guys were talking about when they started getting into music terminology when I was in high school and I was in a quartet. So I guess I haven't advanced in my musical ability whatsoever. So I just sing along, I guess, and learn it by rote. And I can read music. In fact, I prefer, so I know where I'm supposed to be going. But I mean, I don't know what it all means. I just know that the notes go up or down or whatever, and I can count. But I'm a 1 and 3 clapper. I'll tell you that. Not a 2 and 4 offbeat guy. That is very difficult for me. Just ask anybody. So, and that is coming up. I'm very excited about that. And music is the topic of the day today. Marching into March here at the end of February, and really talking about music, which is near and dear to my heart. When I was 16, I started in radio, working at the local radio station, KILW. At that time, it was 102.3, and now it's 107.3, and has been for many years. In fact, I think they've been around for over 40 years. They've been almost 50 years. Not quite 50. I think that's in 2028, they'll be 50 years old. So local radio station, again, referencing back to this guy, Jason Slater, who's in this quartet on the show for the 50s Revival Show at Bowman Fine Arts Center on the 29th of March. Did I say it enough for you to check it out? Bring your family, bring your friends, have a great night. It's actually not even a night. That's a Sunday. Maybe it's the 30th. Oh, I've been saying it the whole time has been wrong. It's a Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock. Boy, what a knucklehead. You writing down the 29th? That's a Saturday? It's not the 29th. It's the 30th. It's the 30th of March. We'll see how long you listen to this show. You'll realize it's the 30th of March. It's an afternoon show. It's at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So you can come from wherever you're at and travel and see the show, and then head out, and you'll be singing and bebopping all the way down the highway and the interstate, whatever it is happen to be. It's the 30th of March. I'm so dumb. Oh, man. And I'm not going to correct that either. Just make you listen and figure it out. 30 March 2025, Bowman Fine Arts Center, 3 o'clock. There you go. Anyway, so yeah, Jason was also in radio. He's, like I said, a few years older than me. And so I would listen to him because it's a local radio station. It's all we had, really. And he would be the night DJ. I thought, what a cool job that is, that a teenager could work the late shift at the radio station. And back then, our radio station shut down at midnight. In fact, it played a little Happy Trails song, and then at 5 a.m. they came on air again, and they played I think they don't know if they played the national anthem. I felt like they did. I mean, so it was just a very weird time in local American history anyway. And so when I turned 16 and got my driver's license, my dad said, you should work for somebody else besides just us on the farm. And of course, I continued to work on the farm. And then, so I went out and got a job, and I applied for a part-time disc jockey job at the local radio station, KIOW. And I did it. I got it. I had to do you have to record your voice, and of course by that time I was singing in my little quartet, so I was really trying to develop that bass voice, the true rich timbre of the bass, the dulcet tones of the lower baritone scale comes from male activities later in life, smoking and drinking whiskey and that type of stuff. That's how you get this. I'm not encouraging that for children, but for men that are of age and have a weakling high tenor voice, maybe consider picking up cigarettes or cigars and try to drop that voice a little bit. There could be cancer. There is that risk, but Or maybe it's just the way God made you. I don't know. Anyway, so got the job, and I had the opportunity to work on Saturdays, which for when I grew up on Saturdays at the local radio station, it was Classic Gold weekend. So it was all music from the 50s and the 60s and then 70s. And now, sadly but true, now, my friends, they still do Classic Gold weekends, except now they're playing songs from the 80s and even the 90s. And I'm like, well, I don't know if that's classic gold. I mean, it's certainly classic in my opinion, but I don't think it's gold, right? We're that old? I guess so. And so, but when I was a teenager, that was the music that was playing, and my parents and all the old folks, they grew up in that time. They loved the Classic Gold weekend. And so I, as a teenager, had, I would say, an unusual exposure to music from decades ago. And so had an appreciation, because if you're sitting there by yourself on a Saturday afternoon spinning records from the 50s and the 60s, or listening to Dick Bartley's Classic Gold show, which is something that they ran back then, and you're listening to all these songs, you learn about the artists, you learn about the music, you hear them over and over again, and you can kind of sing along with them. None of the songs were particularly difficult. The lyrics weren't particularly challenging. The songs in the 50s were all like 2.5 minutes long, if that might have been, 3 minutes would have been extraordinarily long, and took the hippies to get us to Inagata Davida, where it took forever, So, but in the 50s and 60s, nice, clean, boop, good haircut, and music was 2.5 minutes long, and so lots of just great tunes that I learned and came to appreciate. And Don Johnson, my friend, who I've mentioned already in the show many times, he has a real affinity for that type of music, and I think that was probably because of his dad. His dad, Dean, was very much a guy that was into that type of music in the 50s and the 60s, that whole thing, that whole vibe, the style, the cars, the everything. And I think that that's what Don heard a lot growing up. And then he continued to listen and really get into, obviously, the music. And of course, there's a lot of great piano music from the 50s and 60s. And Don played the piano. And probably as a young person, he listened to it, and he's like, hey, I'm hearing this on the records that my parents are playing. And I hear a piano. That's the instrument that I play. And it sounds really cool when Jerry Lee does it. So I'm going to try to do that too. And he does. So it's going to be, and of course, Jerry Lee will appear via Donovan Johnson in this show on the 30th of March at the Bowman Fine Arts Center in Forest City, Iowa. So anyway, that appreciation for music, like a lot of great singers. Consider myself a great singer. No. I had to sing in church growing up. You go to church every Sunday, you sing in the Sunday school programs, whether you want to or not, and had the opportunity, so you just sing in church, and you're encouraged to sing. And we should encourage our kids to sing. And kids love to sing along anyway. Music is a language from heaven. And so it can be perverted and twisted and changed into other things like everything else in the world. But the music, the pure music, that it makes your heart sing, and it makes the soul really come out in a variety of wonderful ways. Children love to sing. I love to sing. I think my kids like to sing. They do not like to perform in front of people. So in that way, very different from their dad. I obviously have no problem. I like performing in public so much. I have a podcast, which I don't even know if I'm at, who you're talking to you. And so love to do that. I don't think they are as interested in doing that as much as I am. But I can appreciate all of this music, and just from a very early age, and singing in church. And you always hear like country music singers say, or even, a lot of the pop stars, like, I got my start singing in church. I wish a lot of them would have stayed singing in church. That would have been cool. So keep singing in church. Like, just because it's your career doesn't mean that you can't, still sing in the church choir. At least go to church every Sunday, right? I don't know. Anyway, that's where it started for me. And then, of course, all those cool influences from early days in radio as a teenager, and hearing those songs and getting familiar with those. And then one time, so as this is developing in the same period, in the teenage years, my dad is a Vietnam veteran, and when he was in Vietnam, he had a reel-to-reel machine. And so back then, when you were recording music, when you were before there was Napster or any of the digital swiping stuff that we could do now via YouTube or any of that stuff, you play a record and you can plug it in and you can record it onto your recording device, which in the late 60s, in this case, was a reel-to-reel machine. So reel-to-reel is, if you don't know, it's like the old type of tape, recording tape, magnetic tape is what it was, and it came on a big wheel. And the different sizes depending on how much magnetic tape was on it, and then it would just run onto another one, and then it would record or play back as needed from one of those wheels, a reel, to the next one. And I discovered this reel-to-reel machine in the attic as a teenager and was very interested in that. And there were 2 large speakers that came with it. And so I drug it out of the attic and took it down to my room and got it, figured out and wired up, because we had a reel-to-reel machine also at the radio station. So I was familiar with how to operate a reel-to-reel machine, because back then, even in radio, so this is the early 90s, they were still using this reel-to-reel deal and carts. We call them carts, and they were like 8 tracks. Oh man. And I would do your production that way. So like you literally would cut things out. So you'd record something, and then if you wanted to cut it, you'd cut it in that part of the tape, and then you'd splice it back together, and then it would run as one commercial. Then you'd record it onto a 30-second cart, and then that's what that's the commercial that would play just 30 seconds, and then it would automatically rewind itself and on. This is old technology. Nobody cares. But that's how we did it back in the day. And back in the day was 30 years ago, 35 years ago. And so, that's how we ripped music. And that's how my dad ripped music. And he had just like oodles of, songs that were on these, that he had recorded from other people's records in Vietnam. And that's what he had to listen to. And he probably had that in college as well. And I don't know that necessarily the timeline when all of this occurred, but I had all those reel-to-reels, and I was super interested in listening to them. And there were some, all of the classic that you would expect, the Rolling Stones, but there was Frank Sinatra on there. There was weird jazz stuff that I'd never heard of, and to be honest with you, I haven't found since. And just cool things, and got to know and appreciate the Rat Pack. Got to know a lot of that same music that I was listening to on Saturdays, and got to have some listen to some music that I guess was jazz, like thought jazz, like almost like snap poetry. I don't even know what was going on then, but that is in my brain because of those reel-to-reel machines. And so all of those influences, I guess, made me a pretty eclectic person, but also growing up at the same time in the early, becoming a young man in the early 90s. I had also grown up listening to country western music, growing on the farm, and the country western really wasn't something that was played on the contemporary, best mix of music type. Now there's a lot more country played on that particular radio station locally. It has certainly gained a lot more traction in pop culture since the 90s. I mean, that it really has. Country music has really kind of become part of pop culture in a variety of ways. But I remember listening to, like Conway Twitty and Kenny Rogers and, Merle Haggard, George Jones, these amazing, obviously my first record was actually the Oak Ridge Boys and the single Elvira. So, and guess what? There's a great bass part in that as well as you well know. In fact, my cousins and I would sing Elvira to my grandmother, whose name was Elnora, and we would just change the Elvira to Elnora, and we really loved that. So the country music has been a huge part of mine. And of course, back in the 80s, we would watch, like they'd have specials for the Mandrells, like Barbara Mandrell would have her own show. I don't know if you remember those or not, but that was amazing. And we would watch those, her Christmas shows, and they were funny and beautiful and great. And it turns out that my wife Heidi loved the Mandrells. So it's a shared experience for us. So just so many wonderful influences. And of course, in the 80s and the late 90s, or late 80s and early 90s, hip hop is coming into play. And so, you're in high school and you've got all of these things. And when you're in high school, you're really trying to figure out, kind of what your vibe is, what's on. Before we had playlists that we had on our phone or Spotify or Amazon or whatever, you had mixtapes, and you would just make these music. This is me, man. This is who I am. I want these words of other musicians to really tell you who I am, and we could make mixtapes and collections. And I will tell you, a super advantage to working at a radio station at that time, having all that recording equipment available with all of those 45s and all of those, and CDs eventually, that I could rip music from right there in the radio station and make my own mixtape. So on a Saturday, when you're playing tunes and you've got a few minutes here and there, you can make your own stack. Say like you wanted to make a mixtape for a girl in your teenage years, and you happen to be a dude who works at the radio station, you could make whatever mixtapes you wanted. And so, needless to say, I certainly did a lot of that. And I don't know if it never really resulted in well, I guess what I thought it would, but I did make a lot of mixtapes, and so that was fun, and it probably led to a lot of my production interests that I do now currently, but all digitally, which is way easier. Anyway, so that's my mixtape would have had everything from old country music. We loved Hank Williams Jr., for example, and we loved the older stuff. I grew up. My mom just loved Kenny Rogers, and how can you not? All of those songs. A lot of people know The Gambler, but I'm like, I know them all, and so they're just there in my mind. So country would have been in there. There would have been a lot of rock and roll. I mean, this is the big time of Poison and Guns N' Roses and White Snake. Metallica is coming into play. Like all of these bands, plus all of those older '80s hair bands. That's all in your brain from elementary school and middle school and into high school. So like that's when I think that was the end of actual rock and roll, was in my late teenage years, because those were the big heavy, like the rock bands that even to this day, you can tell when coaches and athletic trainers, like what era they came from by the music that they're playing. And for people within 10 years or so of me, it's all like still the same stuff from the late 80s. And, you got to hear Guns N' Roses and Metallica. It's still out there being played. And just Bon Jovi and all these cool stuff. Just all that stuff. So that's all on there, right? But that's on everybody's mixtape. But I would also have the Rat Pack, Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr., love Dean Martin. He's my favorite of all of the Rat Pack members, is Dean Martin. Love that guy. And there would also be some classical stuff in there, because I thought I wanted to sound smart, but I ended up really kind of liking a lot of classical music. In fact, to this day, right now, if I want to calm down or just, I've caught up on all my podcast episodes, I'll play cello music, and the cats and the dogs really love that for some reason. So when the cattle come in, I'll be playing cello music for the cows so that they can be just, classically trained cattle. I think that's what you want in your livestock, and for chickens too. So that just all kinds of stuff. And then, I mean, we've got, just the Sir Mix-a-Lot. We've got the good, the bad, and the ugly of hip hop, rap in those phases, the Beastie Boys, that's all in there, and much, much, much more, like a lot of it. So very eclectic. And then, of course, I still had my favorites, like I said, from these 50s and 60s and 70s classic gold, quote unquote, types of music. And those would be all on my mixtapes. Trying to define who you are as a teenager is a challenge for any teenager, for any person. And it's not an easy time of life. I'm not going to make it you're not at war. It's not that difficult, but it is, it's just you're going through all of those changes, blah, blah, blah. And so you're trying to figure out your identity as far as your music goes, and it can be challenging. Some people just stick with, I'm all grunge, which, by the way, I hate grunge. Sorry. That was also during my time in high school. It was the worst era of music, in my opinion. The Seattle grunge movement, no. Terrible. can't stand it. Still know the songs like everybody else did because it was everywhere, but terrible. Not my thing at all, music-wise. And also fashion from the grunge movement was horrific. Just terrible. I mean, everybody's wearing flannels and loose clothing and just looking gross. And now, we've gone a completely different direction now. There's no loose clothing anymore anywhere in high school. So this is a very different time. But back then, everybody was like baggy clothes and flannels and sweatshirts and Zuba pants. I mean, come on. What are we, parachute pants? There were moments where we had really, I don't say this was not the pinnacle of fashion. And in some ways, because of the grunge movement, not parachute pants, but like just baggy clothes. And I wear a lot of flannel today. It has nothing to do with Kurt Cobain, to be honest with you. It's just, I just was never that mellow. I wasn't that melancholy, I guess I should say. I was never that upset. My life was pretty good. I had great parents. We went to church. My family was good. We didn't really have any issues. We weren't rich, but we had everything we needed. And so it was I just didn't have any of those angsty issues as a teenager, which is why I didn't identify with a lot of the movies that came out, or even like the musical Rent. I don't identify with, like, I don't know why you're so angsty. What's your problem? Grow up. Stop being such a baby. And of course, it helps if you've got a good solid foundation and military influences from family and, just to be, confident in yourself. So I did not fit in necessarily to whatever that era was. But it was cool to have an eclectic understanding of music. And then you do get a historical appreciation for like how one genre of music builds onto another. And so that is something that is going to come to the forefront in this show, the 50s Revival Show on the 30th of March, at the Bowman Fine Arts Center. And I think that Don's then going to do a 60s and 70s. Like he might continue to do like a 60s show, a 70s show, an 80s show. I don't know if he gets into the 90s. Like what's there in the 90s. So it'll probably top out at the 60s and 70s, maybe into the 80s. I don't know. We'll see. But I know he's got plans for all that, and I'm just really honored that he thinks that I've got a dumb enough sounding voice to be able to sing these, doo-wop bass parts, which happy to do, and to be able to feature on a couple of songs like Thunder Road. Now, music is the rest of the conversation today. Speaking of Don Johnson, we had a great, saw him Saturday, saw him Sunday morning at church, sang in the choir, and then Sunday afternoon, picked him up, he and his wonderful wife, Barb, and Heidi and I took them out, and we went out to eat, and then we went to see a show over at the North Iowa Area Community College. They have a performing artist series. And we saw, we had tickets to Stephen Curtis Chapman last week, but we couldn't go because we decided to go to watch a basketball game because it was tournament time, for these regionals. And we went to that, gave the tickets for Stephen Curtis Chapman to another family, and they really enjoyed that. So Don and Barb and Heidi and I went to the More Life Tour starring Randy Travis. And if you're not familiar with this tour, just understand that Randy Travis is there with his wife Mary, and but he's not singing. He does sing one thing. He says "Amen," sings "Amen" at the at the end of one particular song. He sings all of so what he has is he's got a guy named James Dupree who had been on The Voice. And that's where Randy Travis had seen him. And so for the last 10 years, James Dupree has been singing Randy Travis's catalog of songs on tour with Randy Travis's band, the original band. And since in the last 5 years or so, Randy Travis then has come around and joined them. And so he and Mary will sit in these comfortable chairs off to the stage right. So they got like a little, carpet there, a little rug, and they've got some, end tables and the comfortable chairs. And he just sits and watches the concert of his own music being sung by James Dupree. He does a great job, great vocalist. He's not, he doesn't have the same sound as Randy Travis. That's a very unique voice, but very close. And he's not trying to impersonate Randy Travis anyway. He just hits the notes, and the band is the original band. They do a wonderful job. So all of that is very, very good and surprising because it's a little odd to be staring at, one of these. Randy Travis really hit it in 1986, 87. So as I'm coming into high school, he's getting huge, and all of his songs, and into through my college era, and then he kind of in mid 90s. So he had like a 10-year period there where he was just enormous. Garth Brooks came into play, later in the early 90s, and Randy Travis was a big influence on him. Josh Turner, and all of these people that we like to this day. And the reason for that is if you've ever listened to Randy Travis's music, you know that he has a very, I would say, pseudo-traditional country music feel that I grew up with. So you still hear a lot of steel guitar. You have that driving rhythm that is very, waltzy and country in its sound. And yet you've got the guitars, and you've got the violin or the fiddle, and just it sounds like country music to me. And so there's so many songs. I would say all of his songs, or at least darn near all of them, and certainly all of his hits. He had 16 iconic number ones. That includes, on the other hand, Forever and Ever Amen. And that's, of course, the one where he ends the show with, they end the show with that, and he sings the last Amen. And if you're not aware of what happened to Randy Travis, he kind of fell out of, not favor, but he kind of, how musicians kind of rise up and then they come back down. And that happened in the mid 90s. Then he kind of switched genres and switched recording companies in right around the turn of the century. And seems weird to say that, but that's the reality. So in the 2001 era, so around 9/11, he had started producing more gospel, country gospel records, and of course some of those are some of my favorite. He's just got a very wonderful voice, and I love it because it's a deeper voice. He's got a great range, but it certainly is a baritone, even a lower baritone register, and he can sing high too. But I can sing his songs. Probably that's why I like him, is I don't have to like screech like it's a Brooks and Dunn song or something like real high, Keith Whitley or something like that. It's something, or even Garth Brooks has got an amazing range, but some songs is too high for me. Even though Friends in Low Places get down there, I like that. But Randy kind of stayed in that register where I'm very comfortable. So it was easy for me to sing along to all of his songs, which I did last night, which is part of why the voice sounds like it. I was singing in fact, Heidi grabbed my hand. She's like, I think you're a little loud, like it's his show. There's 1,500 people there. It was sold out. So, I mean, it was a good size auditorium and everybody's singing. I couldn't be the only one, clearly. But again, part of why the voice is where it is today. I was singing along with James Dupree at the More Life tour with Randy Travis. And so he and his wife Mary sat there. They listened to all the shows. They had these cool little video memory type things that they would say, like sing 3 songs, and then they'd have like a little video that was cool to watch, and then they'd come in with another 3 songs, and then Mary would talk because Randy can't talk. So if you're not aware of what happened, back in, I think, 2015, maybe, that he had a pretty significant situation. So let me get this right. I think it was 2015 or 2013, somewhere in there. He had some medical problems, and it was a stroke, for one thing. So I guess it was 2013. So Randy Travis, he was working out in his home gym. He was always kind of a fit guy, like in his videos, and they showed a lot of those. In the 80s and the 90s, he's just a very fit guy, and it was kind of he looked good. And so he was working out in his gym, in his home gym, in 2013, and then he went to the hospital. He had something called he had viral cardiomyopathy. And then he had congestive heart failure on top of that, which led to a stroke, and that stroke affected the left side of his brain, which impacted, his ability to do stuff with his right side of his body. They put him on life support. Then he got an infection, and then he had collapsed lungs. I mean, it's going downhill fast. In fact, they only gave him like a 1% chance of survival. This is back in 2013. And then the infection, the stroke, 3 bouts of pneumonia, that caused him to undergo 3 tracheostomies and 2 brain surgeries. Okay, so he doesn't sing anymore. It's very difficult to talk. In fact, if you're kind of familiar with how the stroke situation works, it causes you, the brain is plastic, but it causes one to, have to, you lose function in whatever that mysterious part of the brain does. You can lose some or all the functionality, and sometimes you can retrain a different part of the brain to do those parts, but sometimes you do recover to some extent fully, but maybe never fully, or sometimes not at all. And he had very much difficulty walking, and but was able to recover to some degree, but he couldn't sing or speak. And so he obviously has recovered to some degree, but he's not singing, and the voice is gone, and it's difficult to speak, and he's there, he's with it. He's very animated on stage, and, clapping and pointing, and, kind of cueing the music with the bandmates. Some of them have played for him since he's, 44 years. So they're playing really to him. And he and his wife, Mary, sit there, and he's really enjoying it, and everybody's enjoying watching him enjoy it. But you're sad that you can't see Randy Travis perform in person anymore. That time has gone. And there are a number of Randy Travis songs that you may know, and maybe you don't know. I don't know, but there are 2 particular. I love them all. I love them all, but there are 2 that always kind of get me a little emotional. And one of them is 3 Wooden Crosses. I love that song. I can sing it, and maybe someday I'll sing it in church. It's just a wonderful song. Sounds a little something like this.
There are 3 wooden crosses on the right side of the highway. Why there's not 4 of them, heaven only knows. I guess it's not what you take when you leave this world behind you. It's what you leave behind you when you go.
It's just a story of a farmer and a teacher and a preacher and a prostitute. And they are all on the same bus, and they are going to Mexico. One's going for a vacation, one for higher education, and 2 of them were searching for lost souls. That was the preacher and the hooker. And so they get hit by a vehicle, an 18-wheeler, and the bus gets hit, and then all of a sudden there's 3 wooden crosses. When people die on the roadway, people put crosses there, and there's 3. Of course, there's 4 involved. So it's a little bit of a mystery of, why are there 3 wooden crosses and not 4? You find out that the farmer dies, the teacher dies, and then they kind of lead you. The lyrics lead you on to think that the hooker dies, and the preacher gives her his bloody Bible. Can you see the promised land? And then it turns out that that's the story that the preacher told everybody on Sunday, and that the preacher was actually the son of the hooker. The preacher in the song died, and the preacher that talks on Sunday is actually the son of the hooker, who read it to him every day. And obviously, changed that moment of the gospel intervention and the effects of the Bible, made a huge difference in that prostitute's life and in the child's life, who then becomes a preacher. That's just an awesome story. It gets me every time. And I think it's it just really speaks to the redemptive nature of the gospel. And so I just love 3 Wooden Crosses. Not a long song. It kind of it's less than 3 minutes, and it's just wonderful and easy to sing along to. And if you haven't heard it, boy, go look it up. And if you haven't heard it, where have you been? But the other one that gets me, little bit too, is like "Walked on Water," and you would think that is also a gospel song. It is. It is sort of, but not really. It is about his great grandpa, who he just as a kid idolizes, and just thinks that he walks on water, and tells the story of how his great grandpa would watch him play and tell him stories and all of these cool things, and that always makes me think of my own grandparents. Now, I did know my great grandpa Thompson, but not in the same way that this song would make it seem. So it makes me think more of my actual grandfathers, and so I just love that song too. And that sounds, if you haven't heard that, it sounds a little bit like this.
I thought that he walked on water. Said he was a cowboy when he was young. He could handle a rope, and he was good.
And obviously we can only, I can only play a little bit, and I don't know what I can get away with on YouTube. So these are all copyrighted songs. The best way to support an artist, from what I've been told, a musician, is to actually go to Apple Music and pay the 99 cents or the buck or whatever it is for the song, or buy the album. That's the best way financially to help support musicians. They do get some money from Amazon and from Spotify and the radio through the different things. But the truth of the matter is, if you really want to, you don't buy albums anymore. You don't buy CDs or records. Those that's the best way to do it. A lot of times you can go and buy the digital download right from their own websites, and that truly is the best. They get paid that way, and so you can support Randy Travis, who is recovering, and he's traveling. He's been doing this for 5 years, on and off, with James Dupree and his original band, touring with this wonderful More Life tour. And we really, really enjoyed it. Now, one cool thing that was that happened is that so he can't sing, and so they really builds you up. You're hearing all of his hits. James Dupree's doing a great job. The band's wonderful. You're watching Randy and Mary enjoy the music, and all of these things are happening. But you're sad, and it's a little weird because you're like, is he put up to this? Like, does he owe his band money? Does he owe them like 15 years more of playtime? Is this a way, does his wife, Mary, who nursed him back to health, and but they were married in like 2015. He'd been married before, and they got that relationship ended, I think, in 2011, 2012, something like that. So before the stroke, and then Mary took, has been with him ever since, and so forth. And I don't know, and really don't care about all those details, but you're sitting there going, is this her idea? And these are all things that happen because it's just such a strange way to perform a concert. It's still wonderful, and I would recommend it, actually, which is, I didn't know if I would, to the More Life tour. Is very interesting. There have been other, famous people, voices, wonderful voices that are now lost to us and are not performing. Julie Andrews is one. Alan Jackson is one. Toby Keith, before he died. Like, these were all people that were like, they lost their voices and they couldn't speak. So Randy Travis is still around, still kicking, still touring with this original band. And they have, in the last couple of years, come out with an artificial intelligence version of Randy Travis's voice, using 40 plus of his songs to perfect an actual AI, unique AI recreation of Randy Travis's voice. And it took 11 months, almost a year, to get the first one out, which is incredible. And how it started is James Dupree, they explained this whole process. They had video of them, going through the recording process and watching Randy in his current state, listening and nodding and not really, communicating, but explaining as best of whatever his abilities were to create this so that it sounded just the way he would sing it. And so James Dupree starts singing this first, so then they play this song, and it's wonderful. he's singing, and you're like, well, how is this going to work out? And then all of a sudden they switch it to the actual recording, which you can get on Amazon, Spotify, Apple, all iTunes, all these things, and just amazing. And all of a sudden, it's like everybody's listening to, you're hearing Randy Travis's voice again, knowing full well that he can't sing, and so it's a very cool moment. And it sounds just awesome. And the song's called Where That Came From. It sounds a little bit like this.
But when she'd smile, out came the sun, and there ain't no more where that came from.
So that's available out there. You can check that out. He also recorded another one. I'm trying to think of, man, what's that called? I think it's Horses or something. Terrible. Anyway, so there are currently two new songs that have come out in the last year and a half or whatever, and they're AI, but it's Randy Travis's voice, using Randy Travis's voice from the past and being able to produce new music. So for his fans, it is it's awesome to hear. He's not able to actually sing it, but you're still hearing his voice sing it using modern technology. It was a pretty cool process, and it made me think somewhat humorously, Joe Biden could do the same thing. Like, if you really wanted to hear the best of Joe Biden's speeches and stories about corn pop, Jill could just sit next to him. He could sit on a comfortable chair with a little rug, a little nightstand, and then you just have like AI generated perfect Biden speeches. I'm not kidding. I'm serious. It would be awesome. I mean, maybe that's what he should do. Just saying. Joe, the Bidens, maybe I want to look into the Randy Travis concept with AI for the Joe Biden More Life Tour. Could be a thing. It's a suggestion. It's not mean. It's kind of funny because it would work. It would absolutely work. There's certainly been enough public appearances and speeches over the last 50 years, from Joe Biden that they could put it together and it would sound just like he would want it to sound. That maybe they should have done that in the first place. I don't know. But I will say this. It's been an amazing weekend, amazing week, and looking forward to an amazing March and a new season of the Sunny Side of Life. And hopefully you'll have the opportunity to stop in, get some tickets, come to the Bowman Fine Arts Center on the 30th of March and listen to the 50's Revival Show. Come to appreciate all of that music and the good times that we love promoting here on the Sunny Side of Life. And look forward to season 4, unbelievably, of the Sunny Side of Life starting next week at the beginning of March. So thank you to everybody for listening. Thanks for listening to my ramblings, my thoughts, whatever these processes are that I feel necessary to share with you. Thanks for following along. And starting in March again, too, we'll start posting videos that are separate from the show, that are just, the things that you might see that we're up to, that I'm actually doing. So the projects, that'll be a different thing. More information to come on that. Heidi's getting involved, so it's going to be a lot better than if it was just me, and so on and so forth. Friends, it's been a wonderful hour to spend with you and share my thoughts about music. It's a great way to end the season. It does bring so much joy to my heart, and I think music does that. Like I said, it's a spiritual language for everybody that everyone can identify with, and even if not every genre is your cup of tea, you still get it. It still speaks. And even though Randy Travis can't speak, he can still sing. And I think that's just a wonderful redemptive story, which if you go and look at his biography on Wikipedia or wherever, you can see that he had quite a journey to get to where he's gotten to in his life. Anyway, he's always been a talented musician, but a bit of a wayward youth. And even as a later, as an adult, has had some run-ins with the law. And so those are all things, demons that are within each and every one of us. And it's just it's a reminder that we do need to lean on God in everything that we do. And so thankful that we had the opportunity to share that with friends last night and the Johnsons, and go and see Randy Travis. And hopefully you will have some time this week to reflect on your favorite kinds of music. If you haven't put together a playlist, what are you thinking, man? What are you thinking? You can make yourself a mixtape, and you don't even have to use a tape anymore. You can just do it digitally and put a playlist together on Spotify or on Amazon or whatever it happens to be. If you haven't done that yet, I encourage you to do so. Get in touch with that music inside yourself, and I hope that it is wide and varied, because that's how I think life works. In the meantime, while you're listening to that music, share it with somebody and be the sunny side of someone else's life.
There was thunder, thunder over Thunder Road. Thunder was his engine and white lightning was his load. And there was moonshine, moonshine, quenched the devil's thirst. The law they swore they'd get him, but the devil got him first.
See you next season. I want to thank all our friends and guests for stopping by for this episode of The Sunny Side of Life. All the Sunny Side of Life players who stopped by, creative support provided every day by my incredible wife Heidi and our fantastic 4 boys. Thanks to every one of our listeners. That means you. A big shout out to my brothers and sisters in uniform holding the line around the world. Share the word, folks. Let the people know what we're up to. Subscribe so you never miss an episode, and follow us on social media. All skits are written or adapted and directed by me, Troy Thompson, and are produced here at Sunnyside Farm Studios and delivered to all platforms by Buzzsprout. Music and sound effects are provided by Soundstripe. The Sunny Side of Life is a weekly production about our life on the family farmstead here in Iowa, the liberties we prize, and the pursuits which make us happy. Now, none of this is possible without Christ in our lives. For the Lord God is our sun and our shield. He gives us grace and glory. So may the Lord bless you and keep you, and may the sunny side of your life, liberty and pursuits, be in Christ, and made evident unto you each and every day, and give you peace.